Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Guild podcast. The Tabletop Gaming Guild is all about the experiences and memories that playing games with friends and families can create. On this episode, we will be talking about the first annual Tabletop Gaming Guild Company Retreat, aka Family Vacation.
So Nathan was able to come visit Pennsylvania from his long trek from New Hampshire, and Mom and Dad showed up too. We had a nice family vacation with lots of board games.
Perhaps we should start by talking about the Wilson family staples. So some of our favorite games to play on a regular basis would be Concordia, Blood Rage, Terraforming Mars. Concordia is typical Euro.
Well, it's trading in the Manchurian. You're actually building up trading posts all throughout your map, and then you're using those to generate the different goods and stuff during the game.
And the thing that makes Concordia unique, the thing that really draws us to it, is the card mechanic. So you have a set of cards. Those are your actions you can take, and you play a card, and you don't get that card back until you play a specific card that lets you draw back all the cards you played before.
Yeah, basically you're going to expend the cards in your hand, and you have to play another card to be able to retrieve them, so you basically lose a turn. But in Concordia, the more cards you play, the more money you get back when you play the tribute card to get your hand back. It's a really good game. I also like the fact that you don't know what the score is necessarily until the end, because the cards that you're buying and using are actually the things that determine what your points are going to be.
Yeah, and it also has a nice little tweak to it where you have a diplomacy card, and that replicates somebody else's action. So you want to hold on to that, and you can get an action an extra time, or to be able to play a more powerful card that they happen to have bought.
And it's really cool, though, because if you get that super awesome card that I wanted, I can wait till you play it and then just copy it. So there's no real, special ability card that only you get to get. You can purchase more diplomat cards, so you can just copy other people all day long. It's a wonderful game. Concordia is well balanced, well done. It's definitely in my top 20 games.
Yeah. So another one that's in both of our... I actually have to double check my top 10, but I believe it's in both of our top 10s is Blood Rage.
It's definitely in my top 10. Blood Rage is an awesome Eric Lane game. I like it slightly better than Rising Sun, but Rising Sun's not far off. It's basically a Viking mythology-themed area control game, or area majority game, and where you're actually drafting cards that give you different abilities, and you're upgrading your player mat to be able to pillage different areas and gain different points from different goals and stuff that you get through the cards. It's really fast. It only goes 3 ages. We played it in probably an hour with everybody. We did play with the extra player expansion, but we didn't play with the Gods expansion. And I don't play that often because giving that asymmetric powers in the different regions is what that does. And it doesn't seem to add too much, but it is a lot of fun. Either way, Blood Rage is one of my favorite games of all time. And it is awesome.
Yeah, I would say with the Gods expansion, it's not essential expansion. At least I would not consider it such. It's nice to throw in occasionally, especially if you play this game a lot. But if you're going out to buy this game for the first time, you don't necessarily need to pick up all the expansions. Just get the base game, make sure you like it. After you played it a whole bunch of times, and the expansions will refresh the game for you.
Yeah, Rising Sun had the same problem. They had an expansion called Kami Unbound. The gods in the game, they actually come on the board similar to Blood Rage. But it just actually made the game more complicated and harder to keep track of stuff. So most of the time, that expansion also, I don't play with it either.
Another very popular game that we both love, that has tons of expansions, is Terraforming Mars.
Yeah, by Jacob Frixelius. Now, I will say that over time we actually removed Colonies and the Venus expansion. Both of those seem to drag out the game a lot, and Colonies especially really added to the complexity. And just by removing them, we knocked at least 30 minutes off the game, which is significant because it's already a long game. But it's my oldest daughter's favorite game, period. So we end up playing that a lot. It is a really, really good... I don't know, how would you explain the mechanics on it? It's sort of like a card management, engine building, area majority sort of awesomeness.
You have essentially a card game with a board game on top of it. So you could actually focus on either and completely ignore the other. You'll do best by paying attention to both. Now, the card mechanic of it is drafting and trying to optimize by having cards that rely on specific resources or belong to certain sets so you can get the most out of these cards. There are a few take that cards. I wouldn't say they're a large portion of the deck. In fact, they're a fairly small portion of the deck. But you tend to go through the bulk of the deck, so they are likely to come up. In fact, I played one game where we actually went through the whole deck twice, which it shouldn't normally happen. It's just the way we happen to play on that. We were cycling through that deck pretty quick.
Yeah, you tend to get a lot more cards too with the expansions, or even the ones we did include. Like Prelude gives a ton of cards, so we have a huge deck of cards. But yeah, I could see where some games you might be able to go through it. And that really what makes it super long, because people are trying to get those chains going instead of actually meeting all the different criteria for causing the game end to sequence. But either way, Terraforming Mars, definitely a staple game. It's definitely awesome. We actually both got the Kickstarter, which will come with the player boards, which is definitely really, really needed for the Terraforming Mars game. I'm not sure what I feel about the new expansion, because it adds a Senate sort of board to it, where you have to vote, so we'll see. Hopefully it's more streamlined than Colonies and sort of like integrates into the game better. But I'm really looking forward to that Kickstarter coming through.
And I would say for the time duration of this game, it can vary quite a bit based on the players. Experienced gamers that are very familiar with this game, and especially if you have gamers that are not min-maxers, basically people who are playing it for fun and trying to keep the game flowing quickly, it can go a lot faster than if you have AP-prone players. So there is definitely an amount of AP in this game just because there's so much you can do with it.
Yeah. I also found, too, that if you try to push things ahead, like you try to get some of the different markers like the oxygen or the temperature or putting out the oceans, showing that you're going to run out of ability to get more terraforming ratings from doing this seems to push the game along faster, too. Especially the oceans. You want to get your ocean tiles out there, because once they're out, every card that puts an ocean tile can't be played anymore.
You can still play the ones that increase oxygen, but you're losing out on a lot of the potential value of that card.
And the ocean ones are simply dead, because if you have to place a tile and there's no tile, you can't do it. It's a very awesome game. It's not all that expensive currently. With the Kickstarter with the player boards makes a big difference instead of using a sheet of paper that we write them down on because they knock around so easily. It's definitely worth it. I think we have a couple other games that might become new staples every time you come down. Well, I'll get into my favorite one. But the one I think all the family will play most often is probably going to be Wingspan. Published by Stonemaier Games and designed by Elizabeth Hargrave. It actually gives me the feel of Terraforming Mars, but in a significantly less amount of time. I still get the feeling of making an engine. There's a lot of hard choices in the game. You're trying to do different things so you can interact with the other player with the birds you place in the different habitats. And which habitat are you going to develop the most so you get the bonuses in that row? Like one row, you get more food to play more birds. The other row, you get more eggs to play more birds or get just points. And the last row, you can develop more, which is your wetland. That one lets you draw more cards so you can get more birds. So it's sort of like all balanced out. But if you stay and you just like evenly develop them, you're not actually going to get those super big bonuses in the beginning. The game is really well done. The bird art on them, there's a unique bird on every single card. Every single card is different with different abilities and different stats. Every single game I played of it, I had different things, except for I always seem to get the stupid turkey, which isn't a bad card. It's just, I think it was 2 grain and a cherry. Like the instant I get that bird, it's never in the bird feeder to actually get those things. You have to be a little bit variable in the game. You have to be able to like go with the punches, because things can happen where it can ruin your plans, but you still want to like try to get the points in. So you have to have multiple different strategies, like in Terraforming Mars. It's just really well done. Like I said, it gives me the feel of Terraforming Mars, which I love, but it gives me the shorter time frame. So you can get to the table more often. It's easier to teach too. So Wingspan is now higher up on my list than Terraforming Mars.
There are elements of it that are fairly unique. There's a couple different ways you can build your engines. There's actually cards where you can play that actually help everybody, even though you're competing. You're getting this card out here that helps not just you, but everybody at the table. Generally, those are good point-scoring cards, and they maybe help you slightly more than everybody else because you can kind of control how the benefits are distributed. There's also cards that help you based on what other people play, and cards that just straight up help you based on what you do.
Yeah, I really like trying to build the combos in there. There's a lot of combos that you can do. Especially with the starting 5 cards, you can take a look at them and be like, this is a combo I'm going to start with. Yep. So, like, you could have one that says, when I activate this area, my bird lays an egg, let's say. And the next card says, if you spend an egg, you can tuck 2 cards over there, which is 2 points every time. So, you could build like an engine that way, or you could do one where it says, hey, you get a fish. And then the next card says if you spend a fish, you could tuck cards underneath this, or you can put the fish token on the card for points at the end of the game too. There's a lot of really cool things. I love this game. I'm looking forward to expansion if they ever come up with it. I think this is going to be a game that would really suit like a couple expansions with a couple different birds, or even just like these are both North American birds. They could do like South American birds where you just completely change out the decks and stuff. I mean, it has a lot of legs and it can go for a really long time with all the different content they can put in it. I really like it.
I have to believe that they are planning to do the different continents, mainly because they do show at the bottom the world map, and they do show that these are all North American birds. It just makes so much sense to do an Asian deck, and then an Australian deck, or South American deck.
I do notice that there's no chicken card in the whole game. I think that would have been a fun one.
Chickens are so domesticated at this point, I don't know if they could be even considered for this.
They're still a bird. They have a turkey in there. They're pretty dumb.
Dumb, but not 100% domesticated.
It's true. They didn't say North American birds except for domesticated.
Well, yeah. Basically, chickens can't really exist in the wild at this point. They're so domesticated.
I believe that. Plus, there's like 8,000 billion species of those things, too, so... Oh, chicken expansion.
No.
Yeah! It'd be like 800 different species of chicken.
Oh. That is one of the other really impressive things of this game is each card is unique. A unique bird with a ton of details, and all those details are incorporated into the game. So you have the wingspan of the bird, you have what type of environment it lives in, what type of foods it eats, of course the Latin name of the bird, and what region it lives in, among other things.
Yeah, that definitely is an awesome game. Liked it a lot. I'm going to keep going up because I did like Wingspan. The game that was really hard to learn, or at least get it wrapped around because we had to quit the first time, but I really like it a lot, is Clans of Caledonia. That game was awesome. We only played it once, I think, but I really want to play it a couple more times.
Yeah, I would definitely classify that as a heavy Euro. There's a lot of resource gathering, resource trading, and there's market manipulation and fluctuation. There's a lot to that game, and a lot to learn, and a lot to figure out. And we've only played one game, and by the end of the first game, you're just kind of getting a sense of what you can do.
Clans of Caledonia, believe it or not, gives me the feel of Power Grid, but it's like disguised in a thematic game that is a little bit more forgiving because like you have contracts to fill out, and if you need to get mutton to fill them, you actually have to remove your cows or your sheep from the board, opening the area back up. Where in Power Grid, once you put your power plants down, you can lock down areas. I know in different phases, the more expensive connections open up, but Clans of Caledonia is a much more forgiving economic game, but still being super tight. Understanding that market versus your contracts that you have to do is like key to winning, because you can manipulate the market in this really well.
I don't really see it correlating that well with Power Grid. Power Grid can be so mathy. Yeah, there's a fair amount of potential to be doing math in Clans of Caledonia, but you really don't have to do that. Of course, final score and add everything up, but you don't have to literally lay things out and do the math for every turn and figure out how much it's going to cost you versus how much you have. You don't have to do that.
I think that's where Clans of Caledonia disguises it really well. Because you do. You do in Clans of Caledonia, because if you want to put a cow down, you have your price for the cow plus the land price of the cow, and each area has a different price. So you have to mathematically map out your best route, and then when other people are playing, you have to figure out like, well, they're taking all the 2 areas, and you're stuck with the 5 and the 6. So I have X amount of money per turn. What am I going to put down? I'm going to get a cow so I could get milk, or am I going to put a cheese down, which is cheaper, or am I going to try to just spend all my money on putting down a grain thing so I can either make bread or beer, or rum, sorry.
Well, I think the difference is you're not forced into doing the math. You can kind of get a sense of it without having to actually do all the calculations.
Yeah, I don't know. The only thing I see on Power Grid where you're forced to do the calculations is if you're doing connections where you're skipping locations. Because you have to add X and Y together and then the location on it. There is a lot of math in Clans of Caledonia, but I think the best thing about it is you don't think about it as much.
Yeah.
You don't have to just count out your money every turn. Even though you end up doing it, but you don't have to count out your money every turn. You don't have that feeling of, okay, well, I want to put down 2 houses, so I have $30. How am I going to do this? I'm going to spend the whole turn figuring out how to put down 2 houses. Instead, you're going to be like, I want to put down a cow. How do I put down a cow? And you're done. This is my turn.
So essentially, you focus on the theme more than the numbers. We also want to talk about a pair of games.
I know which ones you're going with. And I don't know which one I like better.
Yeah. We played a classic game called Tigris and Euphrates, and we played the game that is touted as the sequel to it. It's almost essentially the same game with a lot of tweaks, but that's Yellow and Yancy.
By my second favorite designer, Reiner Knizia. Not quite as good as Uwe Rosenberg, but who is?
I'm over Uwe.
Oh no, you're dead to me. So anyway, why don't you start us off by telling us about Tigris and Euphrates, the first of the iterations for this for Reiner Knizia.
Tigris and Euphrates can be considered an abstract strategy.
Yes.
There's a little theme to it, but the theme really doesn't matter all that much.
Really not there.
Yeah. So what's happening in Tigris and Euphrates is you're pacing out these leaders that are based on different colors. So you got the black leader, the red leader, the blue leader, the green leader. And in order to get points, you have to have the leader of a particular color, and then you have to play tiles of that color. So every time you play a black tile, the person who has a black leader connected to where you place that gets a black point. And the thing that made this scoring for this game a little unique was only one color counts. So your lowest scoring color is the only one that matters. Now, a lot of games have done that, but most of those games got that idea from Tigris and Euphrates.
And also those games don't end with the winning score being 12.
Yes. It can be a vicious game, and scores can range anywhere from 2 points.
And that's a winning score.
Yes, to 12, 13.
I also like you get the gold points, but the gold points in Tigris and Euphrates are actually really hard to get. You have to connect 2 kingdoms in order to get 1. That's a lot of work, and you have to figure that you also have to fight anyone that's over in those areas when you connect those kingdoms. So when you do the fighting and the resolution, you remove tiles from the board. The kingdoms might not be connected anymore, so you don't even get your gold.
So yeah, let's talk about how the fighting works.
Yeah.
There's 2 forms of combat in this game. There's internal conflict and external conflict or war. So the way the internal conflict works is if you have a leader down of a specific color, say a black leader, and another player puts another black leader in the same connected grouping, you immediately have an internal conflict. And that is based on red tiles.
No.
For Tigris and Euphrates, it's red.
Is it?
Yes. Tigris and Euphrates is based on red tiles for internal.
No, I thought it was based on the color.
That's for external.
I'm pretty sure you're wrong.
Yes, I am
Pretty sure it's black tiles.
Wait, I'm not sure. I might have reversed it. You know what? Yes, I am sure, because it's based on how many red tiles you have around your leader. Then from behind your screen, you can add extra tiles, and then the other player gets to add extra tiles. And whoever at the end has the most red tiles wins and gets 1 point. 1 red point.
Yeah.
External conflict happens when I have, let's say, a blue leader in a collection of tiles. And you have a blue leader in your collection of tiles that are currently separate, and then somebody places a tile that connects the 2 collections of tiles. You then have to battle based on whatever color. So if there's blue leaders, you count up how many blue tiles you have in your entire collection of tiles, and the other person does the same, and then you can throw in tiles from behind your screen to support that battle. The person who has the most blue tiles in the end wins. However, the thing that makes external war so nasty is the losing player then has to remove all his blue tiles from his entire section of the board. So you can split up kingdoms pretty easily by doing this, and you can separate people from their potential for points without them even being involved in the battle. And the other thing that makes this pretty nasty is you can connect 2 kingdoms and cause a war without even being in either of the kingdoms. So you can cause other people to fight. And you can cause multiple fights with 1 single tile, because every set of leaders that match within the 2 kingdoms that you just connected have to fight.
It's a very vicious game, and it's very fun. And you have a lot of stuff to think about, too. Like, if someone puts a black leader down, and they put a red tile down, and there's no red leaders there, they automatically get the red point. So how long do you want an area where a person just put down their black leader just to collect every color point before you contest them? or anyone that builds, like you can build monuments in this, and these monuments will generate points every turn for that player if they have the color leaders in that area. So how long do you want to let them have that around? Now, I will say in Tigris and Freddy's, those point generators don't matter as much as in Yellow and Yancey that we're going to talk about in a minute. They do matter. They're just not crazy.
Yeah, in Tigris and Freddy's, a lot of your points come from wars. And these wars, not only do they generate lots of points to the winner, they can completely devastate the loser.
That encourages it in Tigris and Freddy's. Wars and internal and external conflicts are really encouraged because that's how you're going to get a lot of your points. You play 2 tiles, you get like 2 points a turn, maybe. And the fact that if you're getting a lot of one color point, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Because it is your lowest number of points. So if I see that you're generating red points every turn, I really don't care until you're trying to generate the points you don't have, or you have very little of.
One of the really cool things I've seen in this game, you get a player, may seem like he's doing well, but may have no points in, say, blue. So he technically has no points. However, that can change in the very last turn. You can start a war, and I've seen these wars go up, 12 plus points from a single war. In a game that endgame score ranges from like 2 to 15, 12 points from a single war is massive.
Yeah, that was actually my strategy in Tigris and Freddy's. I would just bump up 3 of them constantly. And then towards the end, then I would do wars to bump up the other one real high. So whatever my lowest one was, I just knew that was my points at the end. But I will tell you, that strategy doesn't work out nearly as well in Yellow and Yancey.
If you understand the core concepts between Tigris and Freddy's, it's very easy to pick up Yellow and Yancey's. They take the same mechanics, same concepts, and just tweak it a little bit to improve it, balance it a little bit more. They do reduce the incentive to go to war and more focus on building pagodas. It's Yellow's version of the monuments that give people points every single turn. And Yellow becomes all about controlling those pagodas.
And what do you think is the biggest strategy change between Yellow and Yancey and Tigris and Euphrates? What, in your opinion, do you think was the biggest change?
The biggest change was the fact that you no longer get huge number of points from wars. You have one collective war in Yellow and Yancey. So what happens for Yellow and Yancey is when you connect 2 kingdoms, you then fight based on how many red, and it's always red. And you might actually have leaders on both sides, but you have to pick which side you're fighting on. And so you might be actually defeating your own leaders. So that's a weird element, and people who aren't involved in the fight can actually contribute to the battle. If they want one side devastated, they could make sure that side gets devastated.
Yeah, that's one of the 2 things. That is a huge dynamic shift between the 2 games. The other one that I thought was really huge was in Tigris and Euphrates. It was hard to get gold points. In Yellow and Yancey, you have gold tiles, and you can make gold pagodas, which will gain you gold points every time it's your turn. Now, I will say, every time someone made a gold pagoda, they were attacked.
Oh yeah, you're a prime target when you got a gold pagoda. The first game we had a gold pagoda built, that was changing hands every single turn.
Yeah, it was insane. And also, I didn't know if I mentioned it or you mentioned it, but the gold points, just to explain them, they're actually wild points. You can add them to any of your scores. So you can pad some of them to try to bring up your lowest score, and you sometimes have to move them around so you can get up a little higher. It's the same thing in Yellow and Yancey, except for they're a lot easier to get. So it's harder for you to figure out, okay, well, they haven't got very much green, so, they're in trouble. You have to watch gold and then pay attention to all of the other colors, too, at the same time. It's a lot.
Another interesting thing they added into Yellow was each color had its own kind of unique power. So red was important because red actually was what mattered in external wars. Black was important because black now matters for internal wars. Green is important because green allows you to make those pagodas.
Oh, so the blue...
Oh, yes,
the blue ones let you remove tiles and also let you destroy pagodas. In Tigris and Euphrates, you only got 2 catastrophe tiles that did the same thing, and you couldn't destroy monuments with them. So if someone built a monument, it was permanent. But you could break connections and stuff with these 2 different catastrophe tiles you got. In Yellow and Yancey, there's so many blue tiles. You can chain blue tiles too. Blue lets you, once you play 1, you can keep playing blues. All the blues in your hand. Otherwise, you only get to play 2 tiles a turn. You could take 2 blue tiles in your hand and blow up any tile on the board. If you blew up a tile that was underneath a pagoda, the pagoda was gone. They're hard to bring back because you need 2 green tiles to do it. And then also, to add an extra layer, the game gave you bonuses if you didn't put your leaders out. So that same said thing, if you didn't put your green leader out, you only had to pay 1 green tile to put out a pagoda. If you had the blue leader out, you only had to pay 1 blue tile to destroy a tile. If you have your black leader out, it helped you with the internal wars. If you had a red leader out, it helped you with the external wars. There's a lot to this game. It did streamline it. It still kept complexity, I think, to it, too.
I think the biggest effect of all these changes was where in Tigris and Freddy was an incredibly stressful, tense game where you're constantly having massive shifts in power. You can also get frustrated because you can get hit really hard and never be able to recover. In Yellow and Yancy, that doesn't happen so much. You always have various ways to recover, and you're always in the game. There's a lot of control over what happens, but there's not these massive swings in the game.
And that's where it gets into I'm not sure which game I like better. They're both going to stay on my shelf. They're both different enough. Tigris and Your Freddy's I like because it's not forgiving in any way. It's a mean, calculating game that you have every tile matters where you place it. You have to be super strategic in it. But then I also like Yellow and Yancy. I think it's actually easier to teach. It's better to get into. It's a lot more forgiving. And it has really cool sort of like chaining things that are neat. It just has a lot going for it. But sometimes I like Tigris and Your Freddy's better, and sometimes when I just want to play a game, I'll do Yellow and Yancy. They're both pretty similar, but they're also very different.
So basically you can sum this up by saying, if you want to smack people around, you want to play Tigris. If you want a nice, friendly, strategic game, well, sort of friendly game, then you might want to go for Yellow.
That was one of the highlights. The next one, Caledonia is like Battle Line, only with a map of Italy. And what you're doing in that game is you're fighting over different areas, similar to Battle Line where you have to get like 3 in a row or 5 total places. It's the same thing, but each battle is done separately. So someone picks an area you're going to do a battle with, which is typically the one that won the previous battle, and everyone plays as many cards as they want out of their hand in turn, one at a time. The person with the highest number wins that territory. The kicker is you don't get new cards unless everybody has used up all their cards except for one player, or everyone's used up all their cards, and you draw another 10. So you have to plan how you're going to play these cards. Because if I blow away all my cards to win this territory on my first turn, that means that potentially everyone else will be fighting all these other battles that I'll be excluded from and can't participate. Strategically, it's probably not good for me to win that one territory.
Nice thing about this is it's a quick moving game. You have plenty of options each turn, but it's not so much that you'd have to really spend a lot of time calculating it. Each turn just keeps going. And I think it's about a 30-minute game, but it feels like it's 10 to 15.
Yeah, it is an awesome game. It doesn't take very long. I think we played like 4 games in a row.
And I rarely play the same game back to back.
So what was another one that was a highlight for you?
Well, there was one that the girls seemed to enjoy. I thought it was alright. Not one I'd choose to play. That's a 5-Minute Marvel.
I don't know, you sound like you're having a lot of fun.
I would say the first 2 games were fun. Then it got a little annoying.
I don't do time games. I'm just not good at them. I've played it with them a couple times. I think half the fun is just playing with them. They really get into it and it just gets crazy.
So what 5-Minute Marvel is you have an 8-minute timer and you're flipping these cards and it'll tell you what symbols you need, and you have to make sure you get those symbols out of your hand and onto the board. But everybody's playing at the same time, so if you collectively play more than you need of a certain symbol, you just lose those extras. So you have to communicate quickly and efficiently to make sure you're only playing just what you need and nothing more.
Did you say 8-minute timer in 5-Minute Marvel?
Sorry, yes, a 5-minute timer.
I think you were thinking of Spyfall.
Yes, I was. We did play that too.
I'm not a fan of Spyfall.
It's an alright party game. Basically, you have a bunch of people who know where they are. So you're given a location and most of the people know where you are, except for one person who's the spy. And you're basically asking 20 questions to try to figure out who actually knows where the location is. It's a nice way to pass time, but it's not much of a game. And I do get a little irritated with it sometimes where you have people are asking questions based on the image of the location. The idea of the game is you're supposed to be asking questions based on the concept of the location. If you're doing it based on the image, you're forcing everybody to just stare at this card and try to dissect this image, and it ends up being just people with their face in the card. And then one person pretending to analyze this card.
That's why I like the house rule where everyone has to look at the sheet when they're answering a question. That way it's a little harder to find the spy.
It does force you to be clever. I like using puns for it and, doing a really abstract questions.
Yeah, some of them no one got but you.
I think most of them.
The one was good, though. What was it? Zoo? And what would you fight backwards? It would be either an ooze or an owlbear.
See how many viewers comment that they got that.
That was pretty good. So what was another game you liked?
That would be the one that you've been waiting to talk about.
Oh my gosh. So the first time I ever played Manchus of Madness. It is one of the greatest games ever made. It is unbelievably awesome. I had no idea it would be that cool. I figured it would be fun, but it is amazing.
I really like going insane and creeping my niece out.
Yep. I don't know how to explain. I mean, it's like all the weight of running the game, so you don't have to lose a player to run the game, offloaded into the app. The app has like thematic music going on it. It has a good dialogue and a good story. Every game we played was engaging, stressful in the right spots. It was just perfect. We played the introductory scenario.
I played the first edition before, and that game took 5-6 hours because you constantly had one player just scanning the rulebooks, trying to figure out how everything was supposed to happen next and how that's supposed to work. And there was a lot of downtime because of that. But with the second edition, having all that in an app taking care of that, it really sped up the game and really allowed you to be immersed. And essentially what's happening in Manchus of Madness is you're given a mystery and you're exploring. It could be a mansion, it could be a train. There's a bunch of different scenarios. So you're exploring to find clues, and occasionally you might be doing battle with horrendous monsters. And if you take too much damage, you get wounded. If you take more damage, you could potentially die. We didn't actually have that happen, but we did have a lot of people go insane. So basically, if you get a lot of horror, you will go insane. Once you go insane, you get this random card that'll tell you what the effect of your insanity is. It may be something minor that has really no effect, or it could be you're not allowed to talk anymore, which is one I got and made it interesting. Or it could be sabotage the group.
Yeah, and I think actually this is one of the few games where the description from the publisher actually pretty much sums it up really good. It's basically the Manchus of Madness is a fully cooperative, app-driven board game of horror and mystery for 1 to 5 players that takes place in the same universe as Eldercore and Elder Sign. Let the immersive app guide you through the streets of Innsmouth and the haunted quarters of Arkham, Cursed Mansion, as you search for answers and respite. The cool thing about the game is the app really works. Plus, every person we picked in the game had a story behind them. And when you enter into the app, it would trigger off those people.
Yeah, so the app pays attention to what characters you chose, and it'll cater the story and randomize the story based on those people you chose. The nice thing about that randomization is it gives you a lot more replayability, so you can play the same scenario, and there's a certain randomization to it that allows you to play that scenario again without knowing exactly what's going to happen.
The 3 scenarios we played, the first one was Cycle of Eternity, and basically that one we're investigating a rash of disappearances from the Vanderbilt mansion, and we get a call from the butler and we have to go investigate. And that one is a really great intro where we have to go in and it teaches us how to talk to the different people. It gets us into the whole solving of the mystery. It's a really good intro level.
Yeah, that was the one where my character went insane and I had to keep quiet, but I couldn't tell anybody I wasn't allowed to talk. So I just, quietly hummed to myself, started rocking back and forth, and really got into being insane. I actually enjoyed going insane so much that I was in future games, I was hoping I'd go insane.
Yeah, it's a cool mechanism because you're like, well, we probably should try not to get you go insane and give you different things to do it. So it's sort of I don't know if we want to let players get all that horror. And basically the way that works is each player has stats on it. And one's damage and one's horror. If you get enough horror rating, then you actually become insane. If you get that same rating again, you die. You can also get up to your damage and you can become wounded. And then if it happens again, you die. The next scenario we played was Vengeful Impulses. It was really, really cool because basically in that one, we go to a dinner party and we have to question like a ton of different people. And there's so much to do in that one. And it actually has like a murder mystery. That one really impressed me. So like the first game was awesome. The second game was even better. What did you think about the second game with all the people that we had to question, all the objectives we had to do, and all the things that were occurring?
I did really enjoy the idea of having to question people. I did feel like it went a little too long before it got into the combat and suddenly it was all combat. I think they could have sprinkled one or two monsters in earlier in the game. But I can see how that would be hard to do and still kind of keep the murder mystery going.
I would be like, oh, you're talking to this guy, and a thing pops out. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll stay there while I kill the monster.
I did play a different character for that, and just having that different character card and the different stats and different starting items made a huge difference in how I was playing. So the first one I was Spellcaster. That was pretty powerful, great at combat and attacking, which was perfect for that because there was a fair amount of combat in that. And the second one, I had a guy who was good at talking, which, again, happened to be a perfect choice for that game without even knowing in advance. That's most of what you're going to be doing. And yeah, the playstyle was completely different. It's like with the spellcasting, you're feeling really powerful and doing a lot of damage, but you do have a risk involved. Your spell can actually backfire a little bit and hurt you.
Yeah, and then I was like, okay, well, my last one was awesome. It couldn't get any better. And the 1050 to Arkham scenario we played was unbelievably awesome. We lost it, spoiler, but it really made me feel like we were on a train. It was crazy.
Oh, yeah. I loved exploring the train. And you could go on the roof of the train and you have some risk of falling off the roof.
Towards the end there, we actually had someone go insane, and it was my daughter, and she was obviously a traitor.
Yeah, she did not hide that well.
So, bad part is like everyone's on the other side of the train. I'm up towards the coal carrier, and if I get to the coal carrier, we can win. And they were like, pull the pin, which releases the train cabs and makes them go down, and they get absorbed into this maw. So everyone dies. Well, they get lost in time and space. But like, it was really tense. Like, I don't want to pull this pin. I don't want to pull this pin. Try to run to the front. And then she kept stopping him. And I was like, okay, I guess I have to pull the pin. And then dramatic music played while I did it. It was so bad that it just essentially killed everyone. And we almost made it. We didn't have one last action point to throw the coal in the fireplace to win.
Now we're just assuming that's the end. I'm pretty sure it is, but...
Pretty sure we at least had another turn if we actually threw the coal in the fire.
I had a nice character in that one too, but it just didn't quite work out. There was a ton of horror going on this, and I had a character that was really good at, getting rid of that for the entire group. But the problem is with a support character, doesn't know how to fight. I kept on getting into all the combat.
Yeah, that was funny. He spent like 3 turns getting stuck. Like, I'll hit them with my trumpet. It's not working. I'll try to run away. Didn't work.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Jim's character was kind of a moron and kept getting the intelligence puzzles.
Yeah, the lowest lore of the whole thing. I could fight things, but I just kept getting in the puzzles. I'm like, oh no, I got 2 guesses. That was an awesome game. I liked it a lot. Definitely looking forward to playing it some more.
Yeah, that's one of the game that I don't think I'll ever get tired of. That'll be an evergreen for me for sure.
Yeah, and there's still 15 more scenarios for us to play?
Yeah.
Plus we have to beat that train.
Yeah.
And you can replay them other ones. It does move the tiles around, and they are different each time. So,
for a 2 to 3 hour game that everybody wanted to play again right away, that's a big deal. It's like a game that can go that long and then people still want to just play another game right away. That is huge.
Yeah, especially my family where they're adamant. They're like, no, I'm good. I need sleep. Yeah, that was definitely the highlight of the whole time, Manchus of Madness. I really wanted to get it to the table, and I was not disappointed at all.
Overall, it's a great trip. We played a lot of great games.
Next year, we'll be visiting you. Your Cthulhu game coming in, Death May Die. That's on the top of the list. And then you also got Mezzo. I'm really looking forward to playing that one. And you had another one coming. You have a lot of games I want to play. I haven't played The Godfather yet. I see that one on there. The Others.
Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea.
Definitely have to play another game of Firefly.
You could probably make a top 100 games that you want to play from my collection.
Yeah, you do have a massive collection of games.
I have a good mix of new hotnesses and classic games.
Yeah.
I still haven't gotten Chronicles of Crime out, and that just won a bunch of awards, so...
It did, so you should probably play it.
Yes.
So we should probably wrap this up so we can play a video game. So that was our family vacation. That was awesome. We played a lot of games. Just as a reminder, here in the Butler area, we have the Butler Library Game Day that's on July 27th. And then we're also helping with the Slippery Rock Con, which benefits the Slippery Rock Library. And that is November 1st through the 3rd. You can register for any of these events at our website, tabletopgamingguild.com/events. The library one for the Butler Library is always free. We do it quarterly. The SipCon, there's a nominal fee for it. It's not that high, but all the money for the Slippery Rock Con goes to help the Slippery Rock Library, which they just opened. So all that money helps them get more books and more stuff to help the community in that area. They're both really great events. Like I said, if you live in the area, please show up. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, and barring any unforeseen circumstances, I will be down for that. And I will be running some games as well.
All right. So I think that's it for this episode. I look forward to our next one. Everyone have a good night, and it's time to play some video games.
Woohoo!
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, join our BGG Guild, guild number 2989, or you can join our guild by going to tabletopgamingguild.com/guild. You can also join our Slack channel, where we're going to discuss board game related topics and our next podcasts. You can also visit our website, tabletopgamingguild.com, and you can email us at tabletopgamingguild@gmail.com. The Tabletop Gaming Guild podcast is a product of Tabletop Gaming Guild, LLC. All rights reserved. Thanks again for listening.